So my name's Elena. I run the music curation page on TikTok called Elena's Favs. This is Tyler Miller, a musician, singer-songwriter based in New York. Thanks for being here, Tyler.
Thank you for having me.
My page is all about highlighting underrated and undiscovered artists, and I think you're a great example of someone who hasn't sort of gotten the attention you deserve yet. So happy to have you here.
I appreciate that.
So you've been making music for a while. You started releasing in 2020, but more consistently in 2023. And I think the album Sophia was sort of your big debut, even though you had one song out before that. And I think that album does a really great job of sort of showing self-growth and sort of these themes of adolescence that shape who we are today. Can you tell me a bit more about how that album sort of represented your first debut project and sort of how it set the scene for the music that came after it?
Yeah. I made that project when I was in college for 3 years from my sophomore to senior year. It was kind of just a passion project. It wasn't a school project or anything, but it was the thing that I was working on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was blood, sweat, and tears. And it was a genuine example of my growth as I went from 19 to 21 at the time. And it was a very long journey that wasn't always fun and exciting, but the final product is definitely something that we're all very proud of.
So how long were you working on that album for? What was
I wrote the first song that actually didn't end up making it on the project.
Classic.
COVID, during COVID.
Yeah.
My second semester of my freshman year was when everyone got sent home. And yeah, I remember sitting outside. I'm not that good
Crazy
at guitar.
Time.
I was playing guitar and I was like, this is the start of something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel that was a time for a lot of musicians since obviously it was a very intense time, but also people had a lot more time then.
Definitely.
And I think that's when a lot of musicians sort of started to take things seriously and started releasing more. So definitely a good catalyst for those creative projects for sure.
Yeah, I think everyone just had so much time on their hands.
Yeah.
And if you're an artist, that's the best and worst thing ever.
Absolutely.
What am I supposed to do?
Right. I really like Sophia because it has a lot of these R&B influences. You talk about being influenced by people like Frank Ocean and Mac Miller. But I feel when I'm listening through your discography, it sounds very different to me than a lot of your more recent songs.
It definitely is.
Yeah, especially when we get to sort of your 2023 songs like Winter and then the more recent ones, Loyal and Burn.
Yeah.
And I especially noticed this shift in sound with Winter. You have a very cohesive vocal chain. It's a lot more alternative and almost dark, in my opinion, than the previous music. Was there any specific relationship or event around that time of Winter that sort of changed things or was a big event for you?
Maybe subconsciously.
Okay.
In terms of the music being darker, like you're saying. But no, that definitely wasn't a conscious decision. I think collaborating with different people has definitely influenced a different sound. And it's I'm sure as an artist yourself, it's always evolving. It's always changing. You know what I mean? During Sophia, it was very COVID and then college, then growing and learning things about myself and listening to a lot of Blonde by Frank Ocean and becoming the artist that I am today through that. So I think those influences definitely
I feel especially as you keep meeting people creatively and even outside of that, it sort of shifts 100%. The music and it's just all part of the growth.
Yeah, I think life experience is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
For songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I noticed and wanted to bring up was before with Sophia, you were working with a bunch of different writers and producers sort of. Yeah. And then around the time of winter, I think, is when you started working with your producer, Rich Torto, who has worked with a bunch of like pop and singer-songwriter artists in New York. How do you feel like that's sort of influenced your sound at all?
100%. Rich is so talented. He is definitely more in the pop world in terms of like influence and what he listens to on the daily than I am.
Yeah.
But I don't see that as a bad thing at all. I think our styles blend very well together.
I mean, I feel like that sort of his pop influence definitely comes through in the music.
100%. In like, I think the best way. Like I'll bring him a song, like Loyal, for example. It's very upbeat, alternatively influenced, but like it's a pop record.
Right.
I brought him just like a really slow, dark demo of me and piano. Yeah. And we like created this world around it that's very commercial, but still alternative. And I feel like that's the perfect in between.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of like, and you can tell with that song too, it's very like piano heavy, but you can also tell how he sort of like, you both sort of added these new elements to it to make it a very like produced song. And when you talk about like creating a world around the music, that was also like another thing that I wanted to talk about. When it comes to like your visuals, especially, I think they're so distinctive. Like you're very focused on creating a world around your music and sort of like using these very like dark, not dark, but
they're dark.
Yeah, dark visuals.
They're definitely dark.
And also like building anticipation through the visuals. Like you have a lot of teasers on YouTube and like I think that was especially true for Loyal. Like, you know, the visuals in that song are like you're drowning in water, and it's sort of is a symbol of the message of the song of like being caught in this like endless cycle of being like loyal to someone who is not able to like reciprocate.
100%. I appreciate you seeing that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like hard for people to like, it's hard for me to get that out. Obviously that's the hardest part of this today. It's like getting the content in front of the right people.
Sure.
So like hearing that you saw that and that resonated with you is fucking awesome. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was like really impressive how sort of you were able to tie the meaning behind the songs to the visuals. And it's a very hard thing to do, I think. Also just like how much time it takes. Sort of like how did your process come about of like getting very involved in the visual aspect and like using those visuals to connect the music to your audience?
I think today specifically, the artist branding and like the visuals that come with that are 50%, if not more, of being successful.
Yeah.
Like everyone has good music. Everyone can sing. Everyone can produce. Everyone can write nowadays. I feel like you need that like package that people always talk about. Mm-hmm. And a visual representation of your artistry kind of is that package to me. Because there's so many artists, like we talked about Frank Ocean, probably my favorite artist ever. Mm-hmm. He's incredible. And then like visually, there's kind of nothing there to like idolize, which works for him because he's Frank Ocean. He's one of one, and that music is one of one. But for all of the other artists in today's world that are trying to make it, you kind of need that. You need something for people to see and like fall in love with, along with just hearing your music and loving it. You know? Yeah.
I think Frank Ocean is a very like unique example of someone who's been able to.
It's honestly a terrible example.
Well, it's interesting as a comparison because he's sort of been able to achieve this like mysterious quality to him, 100%. Or at least in the beginning he did. And
I feel like now people kind of just like are so over it.
Well, yeah, and it's like hard especially as an independent artist, like since I feel like the music industry right now is especially oversaturated, and like platforms like TikTok are like they're very they're visual forward. So it's like, even if people like the music, they need something to sort of like remember you by visually.
And there's so many examples of people that have shitty music, but like cool visuals, or even just visuals that grab your attention that are huge and killing it because the visual aspect.
Yeah. So good thing to have both, right?
It's the goal. Yeah. I mean, if you could have, I feel like there are a handful of artists that are well established, like the A$AP Rockies and the Tyler the Creators, who are doing like the sickest videos that are 3-minute movies.
Yeah.
And their music's obviously incredible. It's like, that's the gap, right? If you can bridge the gap and have both sides of that, I feel like it's the goal.
Yeah. I think like it obviously takes a lot of time and dedication to be that sort of intentional about the way that you like present your music visually to people. Do you ever feel like that focus holds you back from your like other aspects of your creativity?
100%. I think it's a great question. I don't make as much music as I would like to make.
Yeah.
Because half of my time is spent on the other shit. It's like right now I have like 3 songs that are done and ready to release. But I need to shoot all the visuals for them, the cover art, the promo videos, the teaser videos, promote those, spend fucking hours worrying about how I'm going to post them on Instagram, even though it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like, yes, I don't spend enough time making music.
I mean, I think the goal. I think that's sort of the struggle for a lot of artists, but now, especially I think like 2 or 3 years ago, the focus was like releasing constantly, like every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And now it's a bit different. It's like you have to spend a bit more time on like the outside stuff. And now I feel like it's quality over quantity. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like if you can release quality music all the time, best case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's hard.
Easier said than done. Yeah.
It's hard to make a great record quickly. Yeah.
And like you being someone who has like pretty much no team around them, right? Like you don't have a manager, you don't have an agent. So yeah, you gotta put all the work into it.
Yeah, I think that's why I find myself not making as much music as I'd like to right now. Because I'm like managing myself full time, you know? So one day that'll change. Maybe one day soon.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
Totally.
But it's work that I signed up for, you know?
Yeah.
It's work that I enjoy doing.
Sort of like on that note, I was going through an article that you were featured on. I think it was in We Are Soul magazine. And someone was asking you like what advice you would give to other artists. And you said something really interesting to me. You were saying how important it is to like not chase the viral moment because, you know, if you're making music that is resonating with people, then it's going to find them no matter what. And I think now, sort of bouncing off of what we were just talking about, like it's so easy for artists to like experience burnout when they're like
100%
trying to both make the music and then put it out there in like very creative and unique ways that are like consistent to who they are. How do you go about like avoiding burnout in those scenarios?
I feel like, especially in this day and age, you kind of just have to keep going.
Yeah.
It's in terms of viral moment, it's so random because, as we said before, like there are so many people that seem like they don't deserve it necessarily, who get it time and time again.
Sure.
And then there are so many insanely talented artists that get like 200 views on every video.
Who can I ask, like, who you're thinking? Like, anyone specific?
I have some like personal friends who are incredible artists who I believe deserve the world with their artistry for getting like 70 views on a video.
Yeah.
And then I have other friends, I'm not going to name names on either side, who are having the opposite happen to them. And it's like, there should be a little bit more balance there, I think. So which is why when I say don't chase the viral moment, there are artists that like, think of Tommy Richmond for an example.
Yeah.
He has been releasing great music for like 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
No one heard of him before $1 Million Baby came out.
Right.
He had that viral moment. Song absolutely blew up on TikTok. Obviously massive hit. And he kept it. He's about to release his debut album, so we'll see. But
yeah,
he's one of those artists that I think is going to keep the trajectory and like stay. Whereas it's so easy to have that viral moment and then the rest of your stuff's just not as good and you fall off.
Yeah.
It's like my biggest fear.
And I think the thing about a viral moment is it has this like impression that like everything happens overnight. And like a lot of times when something picks up on like online, for example, as with like the Tommy Richmond thing, it's like these artists have been working for this for a very long time. Yeah. And if you have an artist that's like very new and like the first song that they put out like starts to blow up and maybe it's not that good, then I think that is like the definition of like having a song that does really, really well and then it's like hard to sort of rebound from that.
100%.
And
I think that's what separates the true artist from, I hate to use the term TikTok artists, but like, you know what I mean? I feel like if you can, the goal, at least for me, is to like, I haven't had that viral moment. When it comes, to keep it and to keep going up is like, that's success. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for longevity.
That's the hardest part. It's like being prepared for when that comes is like,
it's impossible.
Knowing what to do is
how do I go up from here?
Kind of crazy. Yeah. It's like, how do you constantly sort of reinvent and sort of rebound from
that's the
those
game
moments.
Though. It's like, I feel like all these artists, we've just been doing it for so long. And it's like time and time again. I have a couple songs in the vault right now. They're like ready to go. But after that, I have no idea what's next. But I'm excited to like start it and work on it and figure it out. You know what I mean? Like that's the best part.
I don't think you always have to have like a 5-year plan for you know, then whatever the next like project is or however that's going to look, because also it's totally unpredictable. Like you never know what's going to happen. Definitely. Yeah. So sort of on the conversation of like other artists and sort of people who are in your circle, like obviously I'm very interested in learning more about like the music that other people are listening to and especially what's resonating with artists, because I think like you guys are the best sort of test of good music. Who are some artists right now that you feel like deserve more attention or
You know, you listen to Brockhampton?
Yeah.
Joba, one of the lead singers, not Kevin Abstract, he's like the other guy whose voice you always hear. In all the Brockhampton stuff, just released his debut studio album that I looked on Spotify, has like 10,000 streams per song. And this is like Brockhampton singer, like the real deal. I mean, that was like a week ago. Hopefully I'm sure it's more now. It's so fucking good.
I did not know.
It's like the last thing you would expect from Brockhampton guy. It's like theatrical. It's almost like Beatles, like Bowie inspired. It's sick. I was so not expecting it. And I would love to see true music like that take off.
Totally.
Like really take off.
Yeah. I think
like we don't get that anymore.
Well, I think it's hard because it's like hard to sort of filter through all
100%. It's so saturated, like you said before.
Yeah, but I do think like an album like that, if it is sort of being circulated through, like if people are becoming aware of it, then it will cut through.
Yeah.
Like I think people are always sort of searching for that next like artist who is gonna sort of stand out.
100%. I think that's also what makes it so hard is that every artist nowadays stands out. Everyone is so unique. You ever notice that? I think
I disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like not those what I was calling before TikTok artists, but like I feel like all of these musicians and songwriters that are like doing the visuals thing and like the little teasers and like really going in with that brand awareness. I feel like everyone's being so unique nowadays.
I agree with you there. I agree on like maybe the the branding side, and because I think you have to, but I don't know. I think a lot
of music, you're saying?
Yeah, musically. I mean, and this has always been the case. Like music is so derivative of like what came before it. So I think you can always sort of find those influences and like, you know, I think a lot of artists don't really like to be compared to other artists, but still it's so important to sort of have those like influences, whether it be
100%.
like Frank Ocean, who sort of like, who people can sort of like look to in your music, I guess.
I appreciate that. I don't even, in Sophia, it's very influenced by Frank. I feel like the newer stuff, production-wise, not at all.
Yeah.
The melodies will always be there. So like the way that I write songs is I'll typically like freestyle melodically, and like some of the words make sense, some of them are gibberish, whatever.
Yeah.
Like the top lining whole thing. But those melodies I think will always be inspired by that, 'cause it's kind of what got me into this style of music. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely noticed like the more recent stuff is a bit farther from.
I think it's way more on the pop side than
absolutely.
the older stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Can we return to this conversation of TikTok artists? Because I this is something that like in my videos I get a lot of comments of like, oh, this is like TikTok music, or this is like a TikTok artist.
Okay.
I don't believe
Did you
there
get that
is.
on your videos that you did of me?
No.
Sick.
Maybe that's a good thing. But
Yeah,
I also don't think that like TikTok artists are like a real thing.
Totally fair. And it's super derogatory, and I feel like a dick that I said it. But like,
no, it's fair. A lot of people agree with you though.
But I mean every word of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's okay. We can disagree on it.
All right, when I say TikTok artists, it's honestly less so about the music and more so about the branding and the visuals. It's the people that like, yo, mom, get in here. And they're like in the car. And I'm like, me playing my mom my song for the first time. And then I'm like, it's dubbed over, but I'm like singing the song, but I'm not actually singing it. My mom's like, you know what I mean? Like that's
the staged,
TikTok artists.
The staged stuff.
It's just there's no art behind it. It's like clickbait.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being like the biggest hater of all time right now, though.
There is a lot of like clickbait for sure. But I also think there are a lot of artists who like don't do that, who like come across as having like a very authentic brand, and then like, but yet you have no idea like what sort of outside factors are pushing the music through TikTok.
Yeah,
like 100%. I think Mickey is a good example of that. Like he is obviously an incredible artist. But like social media wise, like when it comes to his page, I think there's a lot of like, how do I say this? Like, I think his marketing is very manufactured in a similar way as like maybe the artist who's sitting in the car and like playing their mom their song for the first time.
Yeah.
So that's just,
is he signed?
Yeah.
That always has something to do with it.
Well, yeah, he's been signed.
Like, I'm sure he's not even.
He's been.
I'm sure he has
for
nothing to do with his branding and visuals anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, and he's also like he's a writer too for other
he's
artists.
dope.
So
I like his stuff a lot.
Yeah, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
But I
feel like sometimes you do know.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I think like Gail is a good example of that. It's like, you know, that.
It's like A, B, C, D.
Yeah. The whole story behind like that marketing campaign was like, we don't have to get into it, but anyway.
Yeah. No, that was a while ago too. That was, I feel like, when blowing up on TikTok was like fucking sick and possible, and like, you know what I mean?
And totally like blew up your
decline.
Career too. Yeah. Now there's like, I think there's less of a translation, but.
Well, think about how many artists have like between 100 and 200,000 followers on TikTok, but like their music's not getting streamed. Even that fact alone, I feel like there are so many like influencers nowadays that have like the hundreds of thousands of followers, but the translation isn't there, whether it's whether you're actually an influencer and like you're making money, or you're an artist and they're listening to your music and coming to your shows. Like, I would rather have 100 real fans that are like buying my merch and coming to my shows than 100,000 fake ones.
I think like you can easily build a following really, really fast that doesn't like translate to like your streaming and your shows and whatnot. And that's like a big issue that a lot of artists run into. But I think like for someone like you, I think it's a lot more helpful to be very slowly building those like true fans who.
Yeah, that's obviously the hardest part too. It's so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Getting all the pieces that we've talked about today, like getting a human being, like a music listener, to hear something or see something.
Totally.
Fall in love with it in the sense that they're going to go to a different platform, whether it's streaming or like Instagram, YouTube, follow you, and then like continuously care is the hardest part. And that's the goal.
Definitely.
You can get, especially independently, if you can get that leverage, it's game over.
Yeah. I think it's so hard. It's so hard to have all of those like barriers, like for people to go from one platform to another. But at the same time, I think like someone like you is in a very good position because people love to gatekeep. Like listeners love to gatekeep music. And I think, I think there's a lot of like validity in it though, in a sense, because like, I think sort of forming those communities that are very like special to an artist 100%. And their audience is really important. And then it's sort of like, oh, when you actually start to have like those big moments, then
we've been here.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Also much easier said than done. That's like the
100%.
That's like the Cardi thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the Playboy Cardi fans are like the biggest fans of all time.
Yeah.
Have been there from the start, found it on Reddit and SoundCloud. And like that shit doesn't really happen anymore.
Right.
Which doesn't mean that it can't happen, but I feel like it doesn't happen the way that it used to.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard because like everything's so accessible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's even like, I feel like the Kid Laroi was one of those, where it was like all the Juice WRLD fans knew of the Kid Laroi before he was big.
Yeah.
And it was like this kid who's super talented and like has this cosign that everyone loves. And then piece by piece by piece, he has become this massive superstar. He's a pop star.
Right, right.
He's like fucking modern Bieber.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he still has that cult following.
Yeah. People
that hate the like Bieber-y stuff, but fucking love the Kid Laroi when he does it, which is, I feel like, a perfect example of that.
Yeah, yeah. So special to have that too.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just true like fan base.
Yeah.
That's literally the goal as an artist.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's why we make music, right?
100%. All right, well, I guess we got to wrap it up soon. So,
I'm having so much fun though.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. We can be talking about this all day. But I guess sort of to tie this back into like the start of your music journey and sort of like these themes of like growth and evolution that are present in your music. Do you like what's in store for the future? Like, how do you plan to like continue releasing music that's sort of like authentic to who you are and is also sort of growing and evolving from albums like Sophia?
Yeah, I mean, I make a lot of music, and there's a lot of music that I haven't put out and won't put out because it's not Tyler Miller as an artist.
Yeah.
But I will never release a song as myself that isn't me and that I don't believe in and love.
Totally.
So as long as I can keep making them, which I believe I can, and I hope that I can prove to do, and I keep releasing them, whether it's singles that become EPs, that become albums, or whatever the project actually is, I think at some point something's going to stick.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a very critical music listener. I love what I love and I hate what I hate. Like, I've shown that today.
As it should be.
And I love everything that I make.
Yeah.
So if I do, hopefully there is a group of people that also do, whether that's 10 people or 100 million people. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully
they're going to find it.
It'll happen. And once that viral moment comes, because it will, if you do it enough times, obviously the scale is huge, but something will happen and something will go off. And hopefully I can just keep it from there. That's it. I just want to make music, and I want people to hear my music, and I want them to feel something from my music, whether they feel good or bad or horrible.
Right.
I want them to feel.
Hopefully they either really hate it or really love it. I think those are the good extremes to have.
More so just that they feel, whether they admit it or not, and like give a nice comment or a hate comment.
Yeah.
Whether they feel something or not is all I care about. Like,
totally.
Just want someone to resonate with my music somehow.
Well, I hope that happens for you soon.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.